First of all, thank you for joining. And so today is our, I guess, 18th session, right? The
19th session.
19th, sorry, I'm sorry. So 19th session, and the session would be in the topic of the data. And mostly it would be a theoretical session. Mostly just I'll be just going through the presentations and I'll be describing the details about value and the significance of Salesforce data. Okay. It should be a shorter session, and we'll be going through the PPT slides. Now, before starting of that, now a couple of things. The data is very much valuable, very much important, and very much crucial for any organization. Whenever you are maintaining a data, some data, or a lot of data for a particular client, that means it's all about the money. Okay, that's where the money actually comes, and that's where basically the company has been given a lot of contract that you keep the data safer and safest as much as you can. Now, what happened earlier, what used to happen, we used to delete the data and the data from Salesforce org. Once we delete the data from Salesforce org, it used to go to the recycle bin, and after a certain period of time, that particular data would be also cleared. And after that, if we try to recover that particular data, we have to contact Salesforce support team. That means the Salesforce company itself, right? So what happened in July 31st, 2020, Salesforce company actually told that no, we are not going to maintain the data for any of the clients anymore. Okay, there is a problem. There is some challenges. Sorry. Okay, so I was there. So what happened in July 31st, 2020? Salesforce company just put their hands off that they cannot maintain the data anymore. So after a certain period of time, if you have deleted some data and if you ask Salesforce company that, hey, can you recover my data? No, they would straightly come and tell you that no, we cannot recover your data, because there are certain compliance, there are certain rules, there are certain regulations that is not aligning with the Salesforce company policy. That is the reason they are not maintaining each and every data for the clients anymore. Now, what happened then? What is the main thing? How we can recover our data? That means that you have to take care of your data on your own. You have to do such a mechanism, you have to depend on such a mechanism inside your org, show that you can back up the data, and in case of any disaster happen, right, you can recover that particular data from the backup. So that's where the concept comes, backup and restore, and today we are going to discuss about that particular topic. Now, first thing is that why would you back up a Salesforce data? First is that one, recover from data corruption, then prepare for a data migration rollback, achieve data to reduce volumes, replicate data to data warehouse or BI, and take snapshots of development versions. Summarize version of this: all of the data basically whenever it is corrupted during any point of time. Now, when can the data corruption can happen? Data corruption can happen while a time of integration. Your system, suppose your system, your Salesforce application is integrated with 5 more systems, and those 5 more systems are feeding the Salesforce data. Let's assume so Salesforce is receiving 5 type of data from 5 different sources. So there is a chance that the data can be corrupted if in case of a concurrent transaction, in case of any other manual intervention. right? I am working in my production org, and what I'm doing, instead of putting a proper value on a particular text field, I'm putting a junk value. So that means the data is corrupted. Now, why I cannot capture that? I can certainly set up an audit trial, right? The history tracking for that particular field. But how many fields you would be doing the history tracking? It's not possible to keep or just to do the history tracking for all of the fields. There is some limitation, right? So that is the reason basically the data corruption can happen. And let's assume that I have an inbuilt system in .NET and I'm planning my entire system to be migrated into Salesforce. Now, you cannot give me a guarantee that, hey, there are 10 millions of customers in my .NET legacy application which should come to your Salesforce. But that doesn't mean that all 10 million customers come properly, right? And you cannot validate each and every customer. So obviously, there should be certain process, there should be certain validation rule, there should be certain criteria where you might get a validated, I mean, you might get a chance to validate the data, but 10 millions data, guys, it's not that much easy, that much feasible, right? So there can be a chance that where we would be migrating the legacy application from any legacy application to a Salesforce application, there can be a chance of data loss, right? So this type of data loss, we need to be cautious and we need to take care, because ultimately, again, the data is client's data and the companies are paid for to properly maintain this data. Now, what to backup and how? So there are two types of backup actually happen with the Salesforce. One is your completely Salesforce data backup and another is Salesforce metadata backup. So metadata is nothing but a data inside a data, the data skeleton, the data structure which actually holds the main data, right? So there is a significant chance that if a metadata of a Salesforce org is corrupted, that means we would be losing corresponding all the data related to that metadata. Example, I have an account field called first name. Now, first name is containing some 10 values, 10 names, right? Now, if my account first name metadata itself corrupted, all my 10 names would get impacted on that, right? So that is the reason while we will discuss about the Salesforce data backup, we have to maintain these two backup. One is metadata backup and another is data backup. Now, how the data loss actually happens? I was just discussing about that particular topic, right? In reality, what the survey actually shows us that 28% actually the data corruption happens in Salesforce. Among 28%, how that actually happens? 66% due to human error, 17% due to integration error, 3% malicious intent, and 5% related to the buggy code. So these all are pretty understandable. Human error means whoever the agent, whoever the user, whoever are working into your production org, they may do some mistake related to the corresponding data. That's where the human error comes from. Integration error, I was just discussing, right? So the Salesforce org is integrated with 5 different subsystems, and 5 different subsystems are feeding the data into Salesforce. And due to a concurrent transaction, what happened? One of the data can be impacted, or multiple data can be impacted due to integrations, right? Now, the 3% of the malicious intent in the sense sometimes what happens, your org can be hacked by other system due to any security reason. So that time also this particular data corruption can happen. And buggy code, if your Apex code is not proper, if your validation rules are not proper, workflow rules are not proper, process builds are not proper, due to that also the data can be corrupted. Now, these are a real data loss example. Now, when the data loss actually happens, forget about Salesforce, forget about any technological dependency. Always remember, whenever a data loss happens inside any technology, that time it is a very, very big headache. Earlier, we used to use the on-premises softwares, right? Like our Java, .NET, Sable, all these particular on-premises technologies. That time, this complete data has to be maintained by a different data center. What happens sometimes, the data center, there are many servers into the data center, and there are some power outage. Okay, power outage actually happens in that particular data center areas. The whole application basically would be stop working. I remember in some times back when we were working for a US client project, and during a particular a heavy snowfall season in the month of December and January, there was a big power outage for 2 days, 24 into 2, 48 hours of outage. During that time, the total application was stopped receiving any data because the data center was completely down. Now, we were working for a banking application. Now, can you imagine that if 48 hours of banking application is down, means how much it is a loss for a particular client? In a bank, suppose let's assume it's a Capital One bank. Every minute, every hour, there are a significant number of customers registering, and they want to withdraw their amount, they want to deposit their amount. So if 48 hours application stopped working, means a significant amount of loss. And when a particular contract is awarded to a particular company about a particular project, there are all agreed terms and conditions that if data loss actually happens for 5 minutes, you have to pay this much of amount back to us. Okay, so you can imagine that how much is a mess up situation for a company, for a client, for an employee, everyone, everybody, right? So this is a generic terminology of the data loss. Now, when the data loss actually happens, there are two terms which are very much important. One is RPO and one is RTO. Recovery time objective and recovery point objective. The recovery point objective means till which point basically the data are lost. Let's assume that my company, due to the snowfall, that banking applications data center were down for 48 hours. Okay, so before 48 hours, I ran my last job to back up the data. So that means that I have lost 48 hours data. Now let's assume that I have run my job to back up the data not exactly 48 hours back. Let's assume that I ran my job to back up the data on Monday, and my data center outage actually happened on Thursday. Now, if that case happened, that means Monday I took my last backup, Tuesday, Wednesday, then Thursday actually the outage happened. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, these 3 days I do not have the backup because my job runs on Monday to take the entire data backup. So that means I do have a recovery point objective till that particular point of time. That means till Monday. Now, recovery time objective. How much time I am taking basically to restore back the data? That's calls your recovery time objective. Let's assume my outage actually happens on yesterday, and when it happened on yesterday, within 2 hours, I have restored the data which has been lost. So the recovery time objective is 2 hours, right? So these are the very much crucial point which has been written into the contract. Now RTPO means recovery time point objective. Just club these two together. Now the tier 1, sorry, tier 1, tier 1, if it is a tier 1, always the banking application, they always maintain this particular tier 1 SLA. So the tier 1 SLA is less than 15 minutes RTPO. So if you lose any data within 15 minutes, you have to recover the same. Okay. Now, if it is a tier 2 business critical applications, that requires RTO of 2 hours, recovery time objective 2 hours. That means you have to restore back the data within 2 hours, and RPO of 4 hours. That means till 4 hours of data basically you can allow to be maintained as a RPO. Similarly, for tier 3, it is RTO is 4 hours and RPO is 24 hours. Certain characteristics of data. You know that data integrity is a very much crucial characteristics of data, and apart from data integrity, there is a reliability. Now the reliability of data, how you can maintain through the automated process, through the scheduled process, through a proactive monitoring, and through a support, right? So every day basically some of the companies do a scheduled job. They just maintain a scheduled report. That scheduled report actually runs every day at 12 a.m. and with that particular report, what they gives, they sends to client, so that clients can see that okay, these are the new customer actually onboarded yesterday. Okay, these are the customers basically retired, or they have just withdrawal their candidature from our application on yesterday. So this is one kind of report which can be scheduled, which can be automated, and which can be proactively monitored before sending it to client. It can be proactively monitored by a support team, by a production support team members, right? So this way basically the data reliability can be maintained. Now how do you do this data backup plan? Now data backup plan is simple and straightforward. You can do a weekly full backup. That means as I was discussing, that Monday I want that all of my data should be taken as a backup. Okay, and the full data can be stored inside some other database. It can be a Oracle database, it can be a MS Excel, or it can be MS Access, anything, right? So whatever the database are available into the market, what we can do, we can just do a full backup, and we can just take that particular backup on that particular using that particular technology. Now incremental backup. Now if I will set up a full backup on a weekly basis, then what happen every day, whatever the data are newly created, whatever the data are newly updated or modified, I can do an incremental backup on every day basis. So that means whatever the new data are getting created or updated or deleted, I can take a incremental backup on that particular data only. And then monthly partial backup. So monthly partial backup is required when you need a bulk amount of data altogether, right? So these are the data backup plan, basically is very much familiar to the organizations. And always remember, during this data backup plan, we have to maintain the security of the data. Suppose my application is based upon a banking application, and that banking application is maintaining there are thousands or millions of credit cards. Now do you really think that if I'm taking a backup plan to maintain all the credit card numbers, if it is not encrypted, then how the security of those credit cards? So anyone support team members basically they would be just accessing the application, and they will be seeing the credit card numbers, and they can hack those credit card numbers, right? So if the data are that much of sensitive, then we have to very much cautious, and we have to take a proper security measurement to encrypt that particular data properly, and then take a backup. Now, fault tolerance and scalability. So this is all about how you would be maintaining the data while if any type of mismatch actually happens, right? In case you take a particular data backup and if you see that there are some mismatch happens, how you would be maintaining that particular, or how you would be rectifying that. So that particular thing also you have to be considering. Now, how you would take the backup in real life, in Salesforce, most of the data backup actually we takes with the bulk API. Yes, certainly we can do with the REST or SOAP API, but as you know that bulk API has a more limit, right? More limit. That is the reason most companies prefer the bulk API to take a backup plan. Now, what they do, they just run some bulk API job, and with that particular bulk API job, all the data just be stored at a nightly fashion. I mean, just they just schedule that particular job on a particular weekend or on a particular weekday basis, so that the weekly batch job will run, that will invoke the bulk API, and that will take that particular backup of the data. Now, apart from that, there are multiple organizations which are currently helping to take your Salesforce data backup. There is a company called Own Backup. Okay, so Own Backup. That particular company, if you just there are other companies as well, but you have to pay. You have to pay as per user basis, so that they would be taking care of every data. Tomorrow if you lose any data, you can directly just ask them, and they are all responsible to restore that particular data back to your org. Now, when performance is a concern, see, when you take the data backup using a bulk API also, that time the performance is very much a concern thing, right? Because what happens if there are millions of records, the bulk API will run for an hour, right? And during that time, there can be several others impact can happen due to that. So to reduce that, you have to take some extra caution. One is that the number of records basically that you need to be more focused, that what exactly the number of records you want, what exact fields you want, and what particular API you are selecting, how much is your network capacity, and what is the degree of parallelizations. That means how many scheduled jobs can run on a parallel basis. Suppose you do have 1 million of records and you set the parallelization of your job just two, right? So that means two job can run parallelly. Now, do you really think that with two job parallelly running, you would be able to take a 1 million data backup within a lesser amount of time? No, right? Certainly the degree of parallelization should be more. It should be more than 10, more than 15, more than 20 to handle 1 million record of data. So that 15 job will be running parallelly. 15 job would be running simultaneously to take the backup of the whole 1 million of data. So these are basically a performance measure while you need to take the data backup. That's the reason I was telling, right? So degree of parallelization is 1. Now 1.1 million records, it has been shown that it takes just per hour. So 1 hour you just run your job, then 1.1 million records basically will be taken a backup. But if you just increase the degree of parallelizations with 10, then 11 millions of records can be taken a backup. But this is a REST API. But certainly if you just remove the REST API and if you introduce bulk API instead of that, this particular number get changed significantly. With that particular example, you can see from 1.1 million per hour, it just increased to 1.7 million records per hour. And the degree of parallelization of 35 with the bulk API, it is, or it can process 60 million records. So this is a data, I mean, this is a graph basically I just received in 2015 with odyssefa.com. Now this got increased, and the latest count, I mean, we can get it from Odyssefa by contacting them. Now, how we can optimize more while we do this data backup? We can optimize the data backup by doing two processes. One is vertical optimization and one is horizontal optimization. What is vertical optimization? As I told, right, that if you have lot of fields, let's assume that you have around 90 fields in a SOQL query, right? So the SOQL query would be taking those 90 queries. Do you really think that it is a good optimized SOQL query? No, right? So what you do, you just divide that particular query into some 5 queries or 10 queries. So if total 90 fields are there, and if I divide one single SOQL query into 10 part, that means each query will contain 9 fields. That would be a vertical optimization. Now horizontal optimization, let's assume that you are querying a particular text area field, and the text area field basically have many characters, more than 20,000 characters. That time, if you try to query, that would be taking a significant amount of time. To avoid that, you just query that particular text area by providing a smaller value. Okay, so this is called horizontal optimizations. Now these are all backup which we discussed, how you can restore them back. So what happened, I lost some of my data, I lost and what happened that with my scheduled batch jobs, with my third party vendor, or with my bulk API, I have taken a backup. Now how do I restore back all those data? So that's where this particular topic actually comes into the picture. Okay, so now the restore planning basically it's based upon your requirement. Sometimes what happens, I would like to restore a single record, okay, because I want a particular single data. So in that case it would be very easy, right? Just I go to that particular backup file, and I would be trying to find it out that what is the record got deleted or has been added or has been modified, and I can just upset that particular record, and then I can validate that particular record, that whether the record has been successfully restored or not. Now if it is a large amount of data, let's assume that some of my accounts data got deleted, and which accounts has a relationship with contacts, with other entities as well. Now if those data got deleted, then it is very much necessary to restore them back as well, right? To maintain that particular relationship as well. So there actually it comes restore a logical set of records. Now while restoring a logical set of records, you have to go through this particular flow. One is that detect and analyze the incident, that when that particular incident happened, how many records we lost, that records has a relationship with which particular entities, and then you do that particular target set of records to restore from your backup. Now you have analyzed and you saw that, okay, I have lost this 10 account records, and this 10 account records has a relationship with their contact and other entities. So everything basically I need to gather them, and then what I will do, I have gathered there and I have just accumulated those particular set of data. After that, what I can do, I can just run some process, I can run data loader, I can run workbench, I can run any SOQL query to update or to insert back them particular records. So this way, basically, I can restore them. And after that, I need to validate that whether whatever I have restored them back is properly restored back, all the relationships are maintained or not. If everything is good, then I will just do my automated process activated. During the data restore, what I had to do, I had to deactivate my triggers, my validations tools, my process builder, because what happens, as you are aware, that whenever I will try to just restore some of the data due to our flow, process builder, triggers, whatever basically Salesforce has given the configuration associated with any type of DML operations, they can throw some error, right? They can just give you some warning. To avoid that, you must have to deactivate them. And once you restore it back, you just activate those particular things again. Once you do that, then your complete data restore is back. So that's all basically about data backup and restore. And this is the generic mechanism we actually take care while dealing with the data. And that's all, guys. I mean, I have completed the particular topic. If you have any question, you can ask.